Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. This is our continuing 2020-2021 preseason coverage. If you scroll up there on the top of the screen, there's a button that says season previews. You can get all of our video podcasts there. This podcast is the Pac-12 podcast. We know that the season is going to be very different than any season we've ever seen before. I don't know I personally don't know how to evaluate a team other than the way I've evaluated them every season we've ever had before. So that's kind of the way, at least for myself, that we are evaluating teams for these podcasts. But scheduling craziness obviously could factor into a lot of this. However, I am Chad Sherwood. We got David Griggs, Joby Fortson, and John Titel with us. We're going to be taking a look at all 12 members of the Pac-12 and, figure out who's going to win it.
And again, this is a very special conference. Something that kind of got missed last year is – the team that wins the last game, the national champion, that's what we remember. That team from last year resides in this conference, the team that won the very last game, and it is Washington State.
Well, I'll tell you what, I normally would start one of these podcasts if we were talking about the defending national champion with the defending national champion. I think I'm going to save them for the end of this podcast, though, just on a hunch of where they're going to be coming in. Let's start, though, at the top of this conference. And, let's start actually with the AP Top 25 poll, preseason Top 25 poll that came out this week. And 3 Pac-12 teams were in it. The highest rated coming in at number 18. Mr. Titel, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to ask you about them anyhow. At number 18, your favorite team, the Arizona State Sun Devils.
I don't like it, and luckily I don't have to like it, but I do have to admit it because they have arguably the most talented backcourt in the nation. They return 3 studs in Holland. Well, they return Remy Martin, who is arguably the best player in the conference. They return Alonzo Verge Jr., who was the 6th man of the conference last year. They have Holland Woods transferring in from Portland State, and they bring in a hotshot McDonald's All-American and Josh Christopher. They lose Romello White from the front court, and Bobby Hurley, some people love him, some people don't. They get a very big test early going across the country to play Baylor in Mohegan Sun. If they can hang with the Bears, I think this team is legit. But the backcourt is fantastic.
Backcourt is fantastic, David. I'm not that certain about their front court. They're going to be relying more on freshmen and younger guys there, and that's where I think Arizona State is vulnerable this season.
Yeah, but, I mean, the good news about that, Chad, is that they play in the Pac-12, so they can probably get by with a little bit of inexperience this year.
All right, well, Joby, number 20 in the nation was the Oregon Ducks, who, if you all may remember, actually, if you want to talk about defending national champions, we did the tournament that wasn't, where we simulated out all the NCAA tournament games and everything. Oregon ended up being our national champion last year in that event. But how about the Ducks heading into this season?
Pritchard's gone. I love Jordan Pritchard. I mean, he is what defined like a tournament guard that could take you to a new level. And he would have become, I think, a darling, had the tournament gone on, and he would become more of a household name. Well, he's gone now. And you do have Duarte and Richardson back. The cupboard's not completely bare. They are top 25 for a reason. And the intriguing component is if you ask most people, okay, who was St. John's leading scorer last year? I don't think many people would have said Figueroa. I just really don't think that's the name, given the hype, around the guards and everything. But he was, and so Oregon continues to be a solid NCAA tournament team. They would not win a mythical national championship this year because their paper isn't as strong, and I don't think they'll win the real one either. But will they be dancing? I anticipate they will.
See, I actually like this Oregon team a lot this year. I think I like them maybe the best of all the Pac-12 teams. I will note, though, that I like them assuming Figueroa is playing. As we just confirmed, he has not yet received the waiver, although everybody and their uncle has gotten a waiver this year, so I assume he will at some point. But Titel, the third top 25 team was UCLA, Mick Cronin's squad.
A little surprised by that, only because I just think that there's a lot of good pieces there. I don't think they really had a chance to play together. they don't lose a ton, and they brought in some new guys. I was still a little surprised. I think they're still a year away, even though Chris Smith is going to be a senior and is arguably one of the best players in the conference. I was a little surprised by the rank, especially because the defense last year was not too impressive to me.
I do like Jalen Hill as well this year, but David, Mick Cronin's team got off to an awful start last year.
He did.
Completely turned things around as they learned his system, is what I would argue.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you got to remember how red hot they were at the end. I mean, I think they won like heading into the conference tournament, they'd won like 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 10 or whatever it was, and they were just, they went to on the Utah-Colorado sweep, won both of those, beat Arizona, beat some pretty good teams in that stretch, and they have all 5 starters back from a team that was playing like an NCAA tournament caliber team, and I think they would have actually gotten there because I think they needed to do a little more in the Pac-12 tournament, but the way they were playing, I think they would have. They were our pick to win the Pac-12 tournament. Actually, that's how good they were playing at the end.
They were, yeah. Joby, but beyond that, I want to mention the Stanford team as well. You've got Oscar De Silva, who had 15.7 points per game. I know Tyrell Terry is gone, but you also you have Dejon Davis back, and you've got Zaire Williams, the number 6 prospect in the entire nation. Probably a one and done, which is kind of rare for Stanford, but I like this Stanford team this year.
I don't know if they have the pieces to do it, to be very honest, and I think history might be biasing me. Do you know how many times since the Lopez brothers, which was over a decade ago, to put those of us who remember them, do you know how many times Stanford has made the tournament since then?
None, I would think.
One. Well, they're
yeah.
due.
I think I need to look this up. I bet they've made the NIT about 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
I would imagine the NIT, if it is held, would be a great destination for them again this year. And yeah, I'm not as high on Stanford, Chad. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. De Silva's solid, but he's not going to single-handedly carry. Let's see if a freshman in the COVID era integrating even at a high level. Pac-12, hey, top 5, top-ranked freshmen in the Pac-12. They've been outstanding carrying their teams to new heights like Fultz and
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll give you that.
That track record here. Yeah.
But this is Stanford.
DeAndre Ayton didn't just take Arizona to a national title. So, yeah.
Well, with that DeAndre Dayton blow, Titel, it's time to go to you. How about it? And talk about your Wildcats.
We must. It's going to be rough sailing, I think, in Tucson. We've already been hit hard with the passing of Lute Olson earlier this summer. Now we see that there might be more talent in the NBA draft with 3 guys in the first round, possibly with Nico Mannion, Josh Green, and Zeke Naji. I've seen that in some mocks that they might all go in the first round, but the cupboard is pretty bare for Sean. I wish that Jason Terry still had some eligibility. He's now an assistant coach in Tucson, but he's arguably a better 3-point shooter than anybody on the current roster.
Well, I'll tell you, you're bringing in a bunch of new players. But I think there's some talent there in some of these guys they're bringing in, like Kerr Kriisa. Did I pronounce it correctly?
God bless you.
He may be the top international prospect coming in. You got a guy from Seattle coming in, Terrell Brown, that had 20 points a game last year. James Akinjo, former Big East Freshman of the Year. No?
Best point guard who doesn't pass in the country.
The most selfish point guard in the country, exactly. That's probably the best way to put him, though. David.
It is the school that gave us Gilbert Arenas. I mean, no.
David, do you agree with Titel that it's just going to be a long year for his Wildcats? Do you think maybe it'll be a little better than he's –
I think it's going to be not quite as bad as what he's like me. I think he's more of a pessimist, but I do think they're going to be better than what he's projecting. But again, I don't think they're going to be what we're normally used to seeing out of them this year. Probably not a tournament team.
Well, David, let me stick with you because a team that I know you love to pick to make the tournament every single year is Colorado. Do you want to do it again this year?
Yeah, I mean, they did lose some pieces, but I mean, this is a team that won 21 games. They've got 3 starters back. I really like Tad Boyle as a coach. It's kind of been lost. I think they've had 20 or more wins 4 out of the last 5 years. I think they can do it again this year. It seems like they're always my dark horse, and they kind of always let me down. But yeah, I guess I don't learn. I think they got something this year too.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jovi, that team building around McKinley Wright. I mean, I think he is going to be a star there.
Well, he was the leading scorer last year. They lose Bay, who I think was a good complementary piece to Wright. And Colorado is very interesting. I'm like David. You always think they're going to take the next step, but they just haven't. Who knows? This year is so wacky. Maybe this is a sign that they get it, with Arizona maybe not being at their usual, level of play. Can Colorado steal something? UCLA still learning it. Can they steal something there? There's maybe opportunity for Colorado that you haven't seen, because, and so we'll definitely have a look and see how the season goes and the schedule in the Pac-12 goes.
Right.
I'm very, with the protocols you're seeing put in place in football, I'm very wary that the Pac-12 in particular is going to be able to get through in the same way that like the ACC and SEC probably will be able to do so.
Yeah, and then as we mentioned earlier, we're going to be discussing that a lot during the season.
Right.
But Titel, on the vein of McKinley Wright being a star, Utah has a star as well in Timmy Allen, 17.3 and 7.3 last year.
He's fantastic, and if any defense does not double team him because they think that there's 4 equally good players, shame on them.
But what about the Utes? Do you think they could get up in the bubble talk, or do you think there's just not enough pieces with him?
I don't. I like Chris Koviak, but this team has not even made an NCAA tournament since Kyle Kuzma was there about 5 years ago. So I'm not high on the Utes.
David, our good friend Rocco Miller could not be here tonight, and we really want to hear him talk about the wonderful season that Washington had, last year, where they were picked to be so incredible and were exactly the opposite. But yeah, what about them this year?
Well, I mean, they finished 12th, and it is the Pac-12, and whenever you finish 12th, it's not good. I think they do a little bit better this year, maybe 9th.
Well, I actually think that there is. If you look at the way they played last year, one of the big things is Quade Green went out with his injury. That's when they fell apart. He is healthy, and that's going to help a lot.
Right, and honestly, I agree, Chad. I just wish Rocco was here so I could say that I think they're going to be much improved and could finish in the top 10 this year. But, no, I actually think they're going to finish in the top half, and maybe even – because up until that happened, I mean, more often than not, they did look like a tournament caliber team.
Joby, USC went 22-9 last year.
Oh, yeah, USC was a tournament team last year, and they're going to regret the fact there was no tournament, I think. Andy Enfield, I think, is a tremendous coach. Mobley, we talked about Williams, at Stanford. Mobley's probably even better. I mean, he's higher rated and definitely a one and done. I mean, without a doubt, 6'11", all the skill set, et cetera. But in this particular year, can you put transfer pieces like they're going to have? And Mobley is a true freshman. Can you put all those pieces together? I'm skeptical you can. In this particular year, you don't have the ability to beat up a bunch of out-of-conference teams to get your rhythm. And, they're not – I just don't think they're going to be able to do it.
Well, Titel, while you are bringing freshman number 3 prospect of the nation, Evan Mobley, into this team, it's not like he's there with nobody's ever played with before, because his brother Isaiah is on the team, correct?
Yes, a little keep it in the family down in LA, but no, I think Mobley's legit. Isaiah's good. I think Evan has a chance to be the conference player of the year. I think he's that good. He's enormous, and after losing some big men like Nick Rakocevic to graduation and Onyeka Okongwu to the NBA draft, who might also be a lottery pick of his own, I think that Mobley's going to get all the post touches he wants.
David, Oregon State went a fairly disappointing 18-13 last year with Trey Tinkle and Kyler Kelly, and both are now gone. Ethan Thompson's back, but is there anything else worth watching on the team?
No, I think we're back to – and it was kind of disappointing, at least for me it was. I was expecting a little more out of them than what they did. This year I'm expecting a little less.
A little less. I got to go back to Titel about Cal, actually, because – we have another Ivy League transfer from your school, nonetheless, on the Cal roster, and Ryan Bentley.
We talked about Mike Smith heading to Michigan recently. Now we talked about Ryan Bentley transferring from Penn after graduating, heading out west to the Berkeley neighborhood. I think he's going to be a good fit in terms of they have a solid backcourt already with Jared Hyder and Matt Bradley. So I don't think he's going to be asked to lead the team, even though he is the graduate transfer senior guy. I think he's going to stand outside and shoot threes, which is a good fit for him because he's good at doing it. So I think he's going to be okay.
Well, they have a lot of actually good three-point shooters on this team. So this is a Cal team that maybe one night when they really get hot, they could surprise one of the top teams in the conference. But meanwhile, go ahead and lose, 12 or 14 conference games at the same time, though. That's kind of my take on them, at least. But Joby, Washington State. Go for it.
Are you only calling on me because Tony Bennett used to coach there?
Sure. That's if we need to discuss it for some reason. We said we discuss all of them, and they are the defending national champions.
National champions from
you are so bad when and I doubt he is drafted today. When CJ Elby decides Coleman's just too much, man. I'm out of here. I mean, that's what it wasn't even. He's not. Yeah. He's not even really the NBA prospect. I think, and they were 4-14 with him. They're in trouble, man. They are. I mean, why would you go to Pullman? I mean, if you're a top recruit, when you go, if you like that part of the country and want to play high-end basketball, the Zags are just, a short drive away. So in Spokane.
As is Idaho.
As is Idaho. Well, I mean.
It's just not – it's just,
one of the things about Wazoo and Idaho that, I mean, I can't think of another rivalry like this. They're 8 miles apart, and I don't think they've ever met in the NCAA tournament.
I mean, in Washington State's in Coach Kyle Smith's defense, he has, I believe, 3 4-star recruits all coming in this season. If these guys stay and if they really can.
How much did he pay them to do that?
We're not going.
I am launching the investigation myself.
Yeah, I am not on the bandwagon yet, but I think Kyle Smith's going to turn Wazoo into something at least to where they're just not the paper mache that we're used to seeing them year after year after year. Maybe not the Tony Bennett years where they were in the top 25, but I bet he makes them.
Klay Thompson was pretty
like
good.
I think he's going to make them better than what they are now, which, I think we could do that.
That's not that hard.
Yeah.
I guess on that note, though, that is the 12 teams in the Pac-12. So let me run through each of you with 3 questions. Number 1, who is going to win this conference? Number 2, how many bids is the league going to get? And number 3, do you have any other final thoughts about it? And John Titel, let me start with you on that this time.
Okay, I think the Ducks are going to win the conference, and it'll be close. Figueroa could make or break the whole thing. He's good enough to win games by himself. As far as how many make it in, I will set the over-under at 4, and I will take the under. No. Yes, I will set it at 4.5 and take the under, but I would not be surprised if a team like Stanford or USC is the 5th team in. As far as players to look at, we talked about Oscar da Silva when we were talking about Stanford, and with all due respect, he's a great player on the court in terms of big power forward, first team all conference. I'm almost more impressed by him off the court. This is a guy who speaks 6 languages fluently and works in his free time in a stem cell research lab on campus. So we joke about student athletes. He is a student/athlete in that order.
David, he's not donating stem cells, which is what you're doing.
Stem cells. I thought you said never mind.
Joby.
I would say I'm actually going to stick with my pattern that I've done in the ACC with Virginia and overrating probably Providence in the Big East and saying Wisconsin the Big Ten. The team that I think returns a lot, 5 starters in this case, finished the prior year strong, thus can hit the ground running, is the UCLA Bruins, winning 7 of their last 8. And we all agree probably would have been more had they gotten the opportunity in the Pac-12 tournament, to go forward. So I think Nick Cronin's got it. I think they've learned the system. I think they're going. I'm like Titel, 4. I hinted at it in our discussion already. I think the Pac-12 and their protocols are going to be extremely strict. We're seeing with the Big Ten in football, the 21 days, we could see that in the Pac-12. I do not see how a Cal or a Stanford gets through the season, unscathed at all, just because of the contact tracing regimes in there. And with a lack of games, that will lead to the committee will not be forgiving if there are too many games missed. And so, because you're choosing, you go, well, I'm going to choose you over an Indiana team. No, the Indiana team's going to get the call, not because they're punishing the Pac-12 team. So I say 4, and one of those 4, I didn't mention in the earlier, Utah, because I like this team. Allen, yes, Titel, they'll cover Allen, but you know what? He also is pretty good at dishing out assists as well. He averaged over 3, which is pretty good for a guy his size.
Okay, when he dishes somebody, that person does have to score, Joby.
5. Well, there are 5. 5 of their top 6 scores are returning, Chad. 5.
Okay. No, I think they're a bubble team, so I will.
They're my 4th out of the obvious 3 we talk about with Arizona State, UCLA, and Oregon.
They're my 6th, actually. I would have 4 teams in the obvious 3. I agree also that I like with Titel. Actually, I like the Ducks to win the conference. I do have Stanford as my 4th team in, with teams like Utah and Colorado on the outside looking in. But David, let me let you finish off here.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Oregon. The team that I have right behind them is the one that Joby was talking about. I really like this UCLA team. I think that they're poised to have a really big year. And again, as somebody that followed the American and in the Big East before that, it just seemed like Cincinnati's MO under Mick Cronin was to start off unranked, finish in the top 10, and then lose in the round of 32. I could very easily see UCLA getting into the top 10, getting a 2 seed, and losing in the round of 32. It's just sort of what they do, or what he does. I'm actually I think I'm looking a little maybe too many layers into this. I'm going to go with 5, and my reason for that is I think once you get past the 5th team, nobody in the top half of the league is going to lose, especially not in empty stadiums, to anyone in the bottom half. So I could see like those teams kind of pulling away from everybody else, and if they can get enough wins against each other, it might actually propel them to get 5 teams in, just because they could all rack up about 8 or 10 wins against if all 5 rack up 8 or 10 wins against the bottom half of the league, then it'll sort of push the 5 of them forward when they play each other. I think that they could get 5 in. And I like Colorado, Arizona State, UCLA, Oregon, and Stanford.
I do find it interesting that even though Arizona State was the highest rated in the top 25, none of us picked the Sun Devils to win the conference.
Well, we've seen them collapse at the end of the year too many times, I think.
But on that note, I do want to take this chance to thank everybody for having joined us. Once again, check out the tab up there. We will be back recording next week. We're going to be recording a few more of these podcasts. We're going to cover all the conferences. But on behalf of David Griggs, who is now down below me, John Titel off to my side here, and Joby Fortson, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.